Hello everyone, I'm Kat with Kat's Semi-Sustainable Life. It's been, 2 weeks now, I guess, since I've made a bread video. My Kitchenarm bread machine. I've got my recipe out here, and my full plan was to make bread every day I was off work. Well, I didn't. I ended up, after the last video, I went to work, then I came home, I had to call in sick the next day, and the next morning I was in ICU. So, I've been a type 2 diabetic since, well, I guess for 20 years now. So, after I'd gotten some spinal injections in my back for a back injury, and then now I'm a type 1 with type 2 resistance, so I get the best of both worlds. Woo. Anyway, still making bread. I'm going to adapt some to the type 1 diabetes life later on, but this one's for my husband, and I might take a little pinch of it, but I'm going to redo the cheese bread that I made, and the reason I'm redoing it is I'd gotten some suggestions instead of melting the cheese in the water and all that, like the recipe book said, was just to add it in. So I'm going to do that. And I'm making a 1-pound loaf because, you know, that's all we need. There's 2 of us here right now. Anything that doesn't work for us, we'll freeze, and I'll give to my daughter for her chickens because she's got 2 little chickens that have been so dutifully working, making some eggs. But right now I'm doing the cheese bread menu, and this is the recipe for the 1 pound. I'm using bread flour, and instead of melting the cheese in the water, I'm going to put the cheese in as an add-in. Also, what I'm going to do is add a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and then a teaspoon of some of my fresh basil. I wish it was smell-o-vision. I grew this basil organically as possible and dehydrated it and ground it up, and it's the best stuff. I'm hoping to get a lot more of my herbs and done the same way. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so you see my Kitchenarm has all the stuff in it. Got my scale. Use that scale for everything. So in this, I have my basket out. It's clean. Got some sugar in there for the recipe, flour, salt. Got my water. Got the herbs. And the yeast. Okay, so I'm going to put you up on the stand, and you can look into the container as I do it. Okay, so I'm going just in the order of the directions, and I'm going to start with, except for I'm not adding the cheese in yet. I'm going to start with 160 grams of warm water. I've already pre-weighed. I'm going to microwave for just a few seconds. And I've done melted my butter as well. So, we're going to start with I've got my paddle inside. I've taken it out of the machine. We're going to have a good loaf of bread this time. Okay. I've got 160 grams of warm water that I'm putting in. And yep, I made the bowl. It's about 50 pounds. Next, I'm going to put in the unsalted butter. I'm going to scrape this in. And I made that too. I love making pottery. I kind of like to go back to the beginning of everything I do. So I wanted to learn to knit, so of course then I had to learn to make yarn. Then I wanted to learn how to do weaving. Since I already know how to sew, I decided, oh, I need to learn to weave so I can sew my own cloth. People just don't have time for all this, folks. Not when you got a full-time job. Okay, so next I've done the unsalted butter, the 1.5 tablespoons. Now I'm going to do 1.5 tablespoons of granulated sugar that I've pre-weighed. So it's going in there. Next I have 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt going in. Next is 283 grams of bread flour, which I've already pre-weighed with my trusty scale that I use for everything. Put it in. Next is going to be the 3/4 of a teaspoon of yeast. I'm going to put a little divot. I'm going to spread this around a little bit. Okay, a little divot there for the yeast to go in. And I store my yeast in my freezer. I've been making bread for a long time, but this is like my first bread machine that I've ever used. So it's a little bit different from the way I'm used to doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this in the bread machine and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've twisted this in, got everything there. I'm going to close the door. And my question is this. Since I changed where I put where I'm putting the cheese in, should I go and... I'm just going to stick with this recipe. I'm going to go with the 15 menu because the 15 menu is... It does have a preheat that's supposed to melt the cheese, but it doesn't hurt to preheat the water and the butter. So I'm going to stick with the menu 15 cheese. Next time I do this, I may stick with the original just bread recipe. But when it goes to add when I'm able to add stuff, I'll add the cheese and the herbs in then. Okay, so let's go to menu. Click into 15. Sorry, I'm holding the camera and doing this at the same. Carmel's trying to get some bread. You should see me trying to make pottery up here with her. Carmel down. That's why I covered everything before I try to cook. Okay, so loaf size is going to be 1 pound. 1 pound. And I'm going to give it as a regular thing. So here we go. Let's start. I'm just going to do medium crust color. Preheat. Okay. So the next time I'll try it on the different setting and see when, without the preheat, on just the quick bread. Okay, so we're just going to go from here. Okay. All right, and there's where everything is, where the magic is happening. I'm going to pause. Be back. Okay, so we've finished our preheat. Now we're mixing. Just going to open this up so you can see inside. There we go. I'm kind of short, so yeah. We're starting our mixing process. I'm just going to wait for the ding where it says I can add other ingredients. So we're looking at 3 hours and 3 minutes before it's finished. Be back. Okay, so I never heard a beep And I don't know, obviously I need to put my things in there so it can knead it better. And so I'm going to put the cheese in and I'm going to put my herbs in. Okay, so I flattened out the bread ball, putting the cheese in. Try not to drop the cheese down in the... and I did. Okay. So doing this one-handed is probably not that great of an idea. Okay. Okay, so that's what the spices I talked about. Now I'm going to unhit pause here. Watch it get rolled into the bread. See how that works. I'm kind of curious if maybe I should have rolled it out and put it in the center like I do with my cinnamon roll bread. But we're just going to see how it goes. Alrighty. Pausing again. Look at that. We've hit 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And I wish that you could smell what is going on in this house. Oh, it smells so good. Remember, I just did a 1-pound loaf. I am going to, and the reason I'm whispering, because it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I'm going to take this out and set it on the cooling rack, and let's see what we've got. I'm going to pull it out in a few minutes. I'm going to let it cool off just for a second and pull free from the walls and see if I can get it out. It smells so good. All savory with that basil and Italian seasoning in there and the cheese. Okay, so there's the bread. It had the paddle in there. And so this is my loaf of bread. Remember, it was just the 1 pound. So that is what I've got. I'm going to let it cool off and then I'll cut it. Okay, here's the cutting. Here's what it looks like. I put a tiny little bit in the microwave with some butter. Let's see what it tastes like. Are you ready? Look at that goodness. Okay, here we go. That is so good. It's nice and savory. So good. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Bye.